What you are listening to is real. The participants are not actors. They are actual litigants with a case pending in the squared circle. Both parties have agreed to dismiss their cases and have their disputes settled here in our forum, the Turnbuckle Debate.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Turnbuckle Debate. My name is Sneed.
I'm Chad.
I'm Tom, the OG Fit Kid, the staple of the Turnbuckle Debate.
And our returning guest, Mr. Mark Bitters.
Hey.
Back on, man. How are you?
It's been a while, guys. Thanks for having me back.
It's nice, man. We're pumped to have you back. We had a lot of fun the first. It's hard to believe it's been about a year since you've been on.
It's been a long time, yeah. I was very pleased when I got the message, the invite to come on back on the show this week. I'm very excited for this.
Yeah, we're happy to have you back. I think when you were on, I'm wanting to say it was like episode 32 or 33, and here we are at 93, well over a year since you've been on. So we're stoked to have you back.
I can already tell. You just looking at the graphics we have on screen. You guys have come a long way.
Yeah, shout out to young Anthony for putting the graphics up for us late notice today. And we got to give a little peek behind the curtain, Sneed. This is the first time.
Yeah.
The three OG members of the debate are in the same room. The OG Fig Kid, Tom, made the trek to Charleston for Dynamite tomorrow. We're recording the debate a little early.
Yeah.
And so you guys are getting
this is a rare treat.
Yeah, the three pillars of the tavern in the same room.
Amigos in the same room. First time. What a trip, man.
It only took 93 episodes to make it happen.
It feels surreal just sitting here and listening to him do it live. I'm so used to it coming through the computer screen. But this is like, I got goosebumps, guys. This is exciting.
This is exciting. This is very exciting. Mark, what's been going on with you? Like, as far as
before we get to me, I got more questions for you guys. So I don't know the history of you guys. Had you met in person prior to this meeting right here?
No.
This is the first time you guys have ever met in person. That's unbelievable.
But it feels like we know each other because we're on this, a couple times
2 years.
a week.
It's been 2 years since we've
2 years of working together.
2 years of working together. First time meeting was about 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
Have you gone into detail on this podcast to explain how you guys got connected if you didn't know each other in real life?
Maybe we've glossed over it a couple times.
Maybe on the flagship, but not the debate.
Basically, what happened was I posted in the Major Wrestling Figure podcast group. I had some medical questions and posted, and Tom reached out to me, and we started talking about that. And then he learned that we had a podcast. He claimed that he had a way to fix WWE.
That's right.
It took Vince using hush money to fix it, but hey.
That was Tom's plan. Tom was the guy that received 14 mil.
Yeah, there you go.
I told Tom, I said, well, we do the podcast, come on and let's hear your way to fix WWE. He came on, we did that, and then that sparked the
couple phone calls,
a couple call-ins on the flagship, and then we were like, we should have a debate show.
We should start debating.
Oh, that's fantastic. I didn't know that's bad backstory on you guys. Well, congratulations on finally meeting each other. You did.
Yeah, it's
I think you said that Tom was in town for Dynamite this week.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you guys? Do you have any other plans to hang out? I don't know how long Tom's in town.
Yeah, we're going to be eating and hanging out,
having
tomorrow,
dinner,
record the regular podcast after the show, and
that's going to be a big day. Go to Dynamite together. We got second row tickets.
Yeah,
so that's going to be fun.
Goodness, you guys are living life. This is great.
Yeah,
it's going to be fun.
Literally just met hours ago in person
unbelievable
for the first time. So you're here for that, Mark.
Yeah,
you got
it does feel like we've known each other for years.
It does.
It really
definitely does. It definitely does.
That's awesome. Well, congrats on finally meeting up.
Thanks, man.
Gotta love the internet.
Yeah.
Making friendships.
That's right.
But yeah, man, what's been going on with you?
Oh, sure. So I think last time we talked, I think that was before my real wrestling resurgence of my career had really begun. I think, to be honest, like we said, last time I was on the show was about more than a year ago. At that time, I had known I was going to be doing Matt Cardona and Brian Myers FWF. I was going to be their referee for their second live show,
Mhm.
but I wasn't telling anybody. So at that time, I was just that show was in October or November, and this was in, let's say it was in the summer, like July, August, when we recorded the episode. So I was in the process. I'd already confirmed with Cardona that I was going to be a referee on that show, but I wasn't telling anybody. So what I was doing, I didn't want to just jump into the FWF and, jump into the ring after not being a referee for 9 years. The last time prior to that, from 2020 was 2012 was the last time I was in a ring. So I needed to shake that rust off, and I just started calling up old friends, old promoters, some new promoters, and I started working all over Illinois and Wisconsin as much as I could before that live show to start getting some of that rust shaken off. And through that, I started forming a lot of relationships that I didn't have prior to coming out of retirement and then getting back into the ring. And really since then, the career has really spiraled into an insane schedule. I am consistently working for Hornswoggle. You guys know Dylan. He has his ACW Wisconsin up in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. I'm going up there every month. I work for a handful of other guys in Wisconsin and Illinois on a monthly basis. I'm still doing FWF. We've got FWF 4 coming up on October 9th in New Jersey. I think they landed on Atlantic City. Is that right? Anybody confirm that?
Yeah, I think so.
I believe it's Atlantic City.
I think they moved it.
Yeah, they moved the location a couple times and possibly the date a couple times, but they definitely landed on the Sunday, October 9th, which is the same weekend as New York Comic Con. You can come out and make a big weekend of it. And then in addition to that, I've still got my toe in the water with a couple other companies that I'm trying to get started with. But we're going to see where it goes. Like I said, I jumped back into professional wrestling after a 8 or 9 year hiatus last year, and I'm not planning on stopping anytime soon.
That's awesome, man. Get back in the game. That's exciting.
And it's a totally different game. I couldn't believe how different it was compared to 2010, 2011. I have zero footage from my original run from 2001 to 2012 because we didn't have cell phones back then.
Right.
You know what I mean? You guys are my age. Yeah. We didn't have a way to record footage. If you wanted to capture any of your moments in the ring, you needed to set up a camcorder. You needed to have a blank VHS. You needed to have somebody over there to press record. And that's the only way you could get the footage of your match. So I didn't have any footage. I mean, very, very little footage from my original run. And more importantly, my kid had never seen me inside of a ring. I have a 7-year-old and I retired 9 years ago. So since then, probably the best part about coming back is my kid now has seen me work inside of a ring as a referee. He's gotten in the ring before shows and messed around. He's seen me on Fight TV and on on a national basis. He sees me on TV. The wrestling right now for me is nuts, and I'm loving every second of it.
That's really cool.
That's awesome,
man. That's awesome. It makes me excited. I'm happy for you, man.
Thanks, guys. Honestly, it would. I know you guys are all still in the major wrestling figure podcast Facebook group, right?
Yeah.
Without that group, I would not be, none of this would be possible. I would not be in wrestling at all. My entire life right now would be completely different if it were not for Matt Cardona and Brian Myers. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Very true, man. Well, sweet. Well, we have 3 topics. You've been on before. We have 3 topics to debate. We'll go 10, 15 minutes on each one. Everybody gets their stuff in. Tom's here, so I guess we'll let him talk.
He's here. Now I can just lean over the table and smack him.
Okay. We'll see how that goes.
I'm going to be present for the first brawl. That'll be great.
Yeah, referee here.
Yeah, there you go. Right down the middle.
My zebra stripes.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll get into it if you guys are ready to do the first topic.
Let's do it.
Let's go. All right. First topic of the evening. Did Tony Khan's purchase of ROH help or hurt AEW?
Okay, I'll start.
He's got thoughts.
I just don't know if we could really decide that yet. As of now, to me, it's still just taking too much time away from AEW stories. But what else are they going to do? They don't have a streaming service now. If this continues for the long run, it will hurt. If this is only temporary until they get something for Ring of Honor, then that's fine. I don't think it hurts yet, but I mean, they got to come up with a streaming service. They got to have a show somewhere so they could separate the 2 brands. That'll help both brands so much once they finally get them separated. Like the roster, everybody talks about how bloated the roster is in AEW. When you have Ring of Honor become its own brand, you move some of those guys over there. It opens up so much more screen time on Dynamite and Rampage for the AEW guys.
I don't know how much it's going to open up the roster to it. My understanding from talking to some of the talent is that if you are scheduled to be on the Ring of Honor side of things, they've given you a new contract. I don't know how factual this is. I've heard this from two people. I haven't seen a contract, so I can't state that this is exact fact. But the two guys that I've talked to are guys that have told me that this is how it works, and they are directly related with the topics that we're discussing. The guys that are scheduled to be on Ring of Honor have already been taken off of AEW television. So the AEW that we're currently seeing is the AEW we're going to continue to see once Ring of Honor exists. And the AEW we currently see, Dynamite last week, is going to feature completely different guys that are going to be featured this week. And the next week are going to feature for the most part. You know what I mean? There's a couple mainstay guys every week, but we don't get Keith Lee on a weekly basis. We don't get Cesaro on a weekly basis. We don't get, not even random guys. There are specific guys that we don't get on a weekly basis already because the roster is so big. I don't think what you're saying, Tom, is going to come to fruition. From what I've heard is that they're already keeping guys off of television to save them for Ring of Honor.
But I mean, they have some of the champions: Samoa Joe, FTR.
There's a ton of potential there. I completely agree with you. And I agree with the separation.
Joe hasn't been on TV since May, so that kind of like
to me that's a clue. Joe is not one of the guys that I was referring to, but his appearances or lack thereof are very similar to the appearances of the guys that I am referring to, in that they haven't been on TV.
And that kind of worries me because it's one of two things. Either one, they have either something on the horizon as far as a TV deal or a streaming deal that we're not privy to. And that's why they're letting guys kind of sit, because they know something's coming down the pike. But if that's not the case and they're just letting these guys sit with no foreseeable TV deal or way to watch ROH product, that's alarming that he's getting guys under contract and not even using them. I think as it stands right now, it's absolutely hurting AEW. I feel like it's muddying the waters a little bit. I don't think we're seeing all the ROH guys. I think, Mark, I kind of tend to agree. Like, most people that are going to be on ROH probably just aren't on our TVs, but the FTRs, the Cesaros, the title holders that are going to kind of, like, I think Cesaro would have been ROH exclusive if there was something there. Like, his original plan, supposedly what came out in the press, was Tony Khan's plan was to debut Cesaro, or Claudio now, debut him at Death Before Dishonor, but the situation happened with Danielson not being able to work Forbidden Door, and they brought him in early as like a big surprise to make up for the fact that Danielson couldn't make that event. So I don't know, man. I think in the long run, if a TV deal happens, I think it could shake out and make things not as muddy right now. But right now it feels a little bit like a clusterfuck. And I do think when it does shake out, I think some of the guys that are maybe not being used as much on AEW may go over there, possibly. But I know,
right?
Colt Cabana, he's been off of TV. I know he's supposedly got signed to ROH, and that's where he's going to be whenever it starts up. We haven't seen him in a long time. Brian Cage, haven't seen him in a long time. I know they're picking up Blake Christian from GCW, like a lot of stuff like that. He's supposedly going to be in this new ROH. So we'll see how it shakes out down the line. But right now, I think it's hurting AEW just because even if there's not talent, ROH talent kind of muddying up the Dynamites and the Rampages, it's still just kind of confusing to fans. I think like fans are wondering, and just that overall confusion of, is this happening? When's it going to happen? That's bad for the overall look. I think that needs to be cleared up. We need to know what the future of ROH is.
Yeah. Until we separate AEW and ROH, it's hurting, because when we go in, or if we continue on the path of having to build for an ROH pay-per-view when there's no TV deal, and we say it all the time, when there's a TV deal, if there's a TV deal, but that's all we can really rely on right now. But when we have to build for pay-per-views, like it's hurting AEW because it's taking time to build those pay-per-views on AEW TV.
And I totally agree with what you guys are saying. I think currently having Ring of Honor and the ownership be under Tony Khan is absolutely taking some focus away from AEW, and it's definitely hurting them in the present. And we also have to look at it going forward, right? We don't know what the future is for Ring of Honor. We have to assume, right? We have to assume that there's going to be a television deal down the line. I think it would be very not smart of somebody to purchase the company of Ring of Honor and not have some sort of plan going forward to get them on a weekly or whatever the schedule is on television on a regular basis.
Right.
When it happens, when that does happen, so this is now we've decided that currently it's not helping AEW at all. But going forward, considering Tony Khan is the owner of both companies, is he going to be able to focus on enough? Is he going to, you know what I mean? Is he going to bring in some outside help to help focus on maybe AEW? And maybe he goes with Ring of Honor. Maybe he sticks with AEW and brings in someone else to run Ring of Honor. I don't know. I don't know if maybe Tony Khan's plan is just maybe he brings in somebody to run AEW and somebody else to bring in Ring of Honor, and then he buys another company and another company. Then he's just this king of a bunch of these promotions. We don't know what the plan is.
I do think I think everybody, a lot of the outside critiques of Tony or warnings, I heard people issue warnings to him, is he could be spreading himself too thin. And when you really look at what the guy's doing with Fulham, the soccer team, football team in Europe, you've got the Jaguars, you've got ROH now and AEW. At first you're like, well, this guy, he's handling it. AEW was running very smooth. They were being very successful for a young company. But now lately I have got the feeling that it does seem like he is spread too thin. And I think with the recent shakeup where he's hired and elevated all these people to take some of that off of him, I think that's a signal that he was spreading himself. He has to delegate responsibility, and I think he's coming to realize that.
Do we know what Tony Khan's actual, I know he's the owner, but do we know his actual role for AEW currently? Is he booking shows? Is he creating storylines?
Yeah, he's from everything that's been written about, talked about, interviews, he's the main man. He's writing everything. He's writing every show.
That's crazy to me. The whole, you guys obviously know AEW and the history of it more than I do. It started with Cody and the Bucks, right? And then at some point, ownership and the lead role transitioned from those three, and Kenny, I guess, to Tony. And only Tony, a guy. So from three or four wrestlers, the guys who were the king of the Indies and king of Japan, and then a huge guy in WWE and a huge guy in Japan, transition, all that history of wrestling and all that experience transition to Tony Khan, who was, I understand he was involved in wrestling, but he never ran a company. He never, to my knowledge, he never ran a show prior to AEW. And now he's just the sole runner of this entire business.
Well, I think how it all went down, they put together All In, which was kind of what's funny. It's kind of came full circle because they put together All In, which was a joint effort.
That was pre-AEW.
It was pre-AEW. And then Tony Khan saw that, brought them in as executive vice presidents. In the beginning of AEW, though, all of those guys were in the booking meetings and kind of had a say in some of the booking. And I think the ratings weren't hitting as hard after that initial debut of Dynamite. The ratings started dropping. That Dynamite debuted October of 2019. And then around January of 2020 was when Tony Khan took full reins of all booking. And then the ratings started going up because I think it was a little, it felt mishmash. Like there was a little bit of this. It didn't feel as honed in those very early episodes of Dynamite. So I do think like he should be the filter that everything runs through, but I would like to see him elevate some of these, like, you know, he's got Art Anderson there. He's got Dean Malenko. These are guys that had a hand in stuff in WWE. Now he's not booking the matches as far as like, he's not producing the bell to bell
sure.
stuff. But
I mean, no offense to Tony, but thank God, like he's got enough guys to be producing matches. Yeah,
yeah. Man, that'd
But
be tough.
you think about it too. He had Cody, whose dad was a promoter. Cody probably talked to his dad endless hours about this, and you wonder if him removing Cody from Power, if that's part of the separation when Cody decided it was time to move on. Because
the subtraction of Cody from AEW had to be huge on the backstage impact that's had. It's honestly just difficult to talk about how Ring of Honor, going back to the original topic, how the purchase of Ring of Honor affects AEW without even knowing for sure, is Tony booking on his own? How much is Tony doing now, or even prior to the purchase of Ring of Honor versus going forward when he has Ring of Honor under his wing as well, without knowing what each one of his jobs were and how involved he was in the minutia of things or the majority of things. Without knowing that kind of stuff, it's very hard to tell how it's going to be affected going forward with the acquisition of Ring of Honor.
I do remember when he made the announcement in April, I believe it was April or late March, that he purchased ROH. He was doing a bunch of press for it. And there was an interview. They even asked Bryan Danielson about it. Like, would you take a booker role? Like if Tony allowed you to book ROH, because he's a legend of ROH. So, and Danielson was like, yeah, I would be open to that. And Tony Khan kind of shut down the idea, like, no, I'll be running that too. And that's when the questions of like,
that's crazy. So he's saying that he's going to book both AEW and Ring of Honor.
Right.
Does this guy sleep? I don't understand how he just runs AEW.
Exactly. So I think that tune is going to change. I think that's just a very admirable feat to try and do. I don't think that's going to be the case.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's learning. He's just recently promoted a bunch of people to make communication better there with the wrestlers. So he's definitely learning. But answer me this. Right now, do you guys agree it doesn't feel any different than when WWE purchased WCW?
No.
Oh, that's an interesting comparison. I think it's too soon to tell.
Yes,
but yes, I if it stays this way, absolutely. If it stays this way for 6 more months and we hear very little from Ring of Honor with an occasional pay-per-view, yeah, absolutely. It's the question of, well, why'd you buy it in the first place? If this is what you're going to do with it.
It's very similar, Tom, because when WCW was purchased, there was this big splash when it first happened, and then it just kind of petered out. Like we were waiting for the Stings and Flairs and all these people to show up, and it never really happened. They really dropped the ball with that back in the day. It was the invasion angle was awful, but yeah, I'm getting vibes of that for sure now.
That's a good call.
All right. Does anybody have anything final to say before we wrap up and move on?
Nope. Let's do it.
All right. Our second topic of the evening is social media beneficial to professional wrestling? Now, Mark, this is the question that you brought to the table, so I'll defer to you to go first.
Sure. So I this is one of the things I love about your show is that you allow the guests to bring up a topic and then bring it to the table and we can discuss it.
Yep.
It's also one of the fears of mine because then I have the homework to do and I've got to get it done. And I got to send this question that I've created over to Tom to get it ready for the show. I came up with this question, one, because prior to me being back into wrestling last year in 2021, I didn't have a big social media presence. I had social media presence for the podcast I was doing at the time, the Bitter Marks podcast. And even the beginning of my referee career, I was just starting to post. In addition to posting like podcast content, I was also like, here's a picture of me from a wrestling show I did this weekend. Here's a picture of whatever. So I was intermingling them combined. And it wasn't until maybe 2 or 3 months ago that I actually created Mark Bitters, their own Facebook page and Twitter account, which was separate from the podcast, the now defunct podcast. Bitter Marks doesn't exist, but Mark Bitters lives on. If you want to follow him, you can go ahead at Ref Mark Bitters on Twitter, and then Facebook is I think I'm the only Mark Bitters because Bitters isn't a real last name. But social media in pro wrestling, right? Everybody's got it, and the level at which they use it, whether it's wrestlers, wrestling promotions, promoters, even like ring companies have social media. Everybody has social media, but the level at which they use it is different, right? Some guys, if you're a wrestler, some guys, their entire social media is in character. They're talking about feuds. They're talking about how much they hate this guy from the last show and how angry they are. But then you have guys like Ethan Page, like Julian M. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but it's all over social media. And I know that because all of his social media is under his real name. He doesn't believe in having a brand as Ethan Page. He would much rather own the bigger brand, which is his own name, something he can never lose. So which is better? Which is it better to live in a kayfabe world online? Is it better to live in a Sasha Banks, Naomi kind of world where they don't care and they just shoot straight on social media? I just thought it was an interesting topic to discuss. I don't know if I have an answer for this. I think it's beneficial. I think there are pros and cons. I come from a very old school way of thinking with wrestling. Like I said, I was brought up early 2000s. That's when I was trained. And back then it was instilled in me that the wrestlers are here and the fans are over here, and it's separate. We don't include them in stuff. There's a big separation. Social media blurs those lines. So is this blurring good for the business, or is it hurting the business?
You know, I've been watching wrestling for a long time, and I love nothing more than getting behind the scenes info. But
Sure.
afterwards, I don't like it when it's happening. To me, I'd rather everything be kayfabe. I don't want to see two guys that are fighting on TV together on Instagram out at night or shopping or whatever they're doing.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah,
I'm not into that. That takes away from me. I love how MJF is when he is on social media, being in his character.
In character all the time. Absolutely.
I love stories being built on social media. We've seen the whole thing with Darby Allin and Brody King. You know, that kind of played out, happened in real life, but the videos are breaking on social media. So yeah, I think it could definitely have a benefit, you know, to stories. We've seen it, you know, used the right way. But then again, there are some people who, like Sasha Banks, you know, she goes to her real life and all of a sudden she's showing photos of everything. She doesn't care. And there's a bunch of people like that. So I think is it beneficial? It certainly is. It's just, if it's someone you don't want to follow, like if I don't want to see it, try not to follow the person. But
Sure.
In today's day and age, you see Charlotte gets married, you see people she's feuding with at her wedding.
Right.
You know, it just blurs the line too much now. I love watching The Last Ride by The Undertaker, taking me back through the stuff that we didn't know everything behind the scenes while it was happening. You know, but to see it now,
so that's what you meant when you say you like it after the fact.
Yes.
Because of that Last Ride documentary, it was not The Undertaker doing interviews. Mark Calloway was doing interviews about The Undertaker. That you're okay with.
Yes.
Versus Charlotte, somebody that she's currently on TV, she's currently working. It might not be somebody that she's currently feuding with, but even somebody she has a history with, they haven't made up, they're still on television, they're still enemies, that you don't want to see them together. That's very interesting.
I mean, even pictures of Rey Mysterio without his mask surfaced from her wedding on social media.
Honestly, I'm surprised he didn't wear it at the wedding.
Yeah, I think I'm with you, Mark. I think there's pros and cons, obviously. And I get, who am I to hate on the Ethan Pages? Matt Cardona kind of did it. You know, he started doing everything, the major wrestling, all that started coming as Matt Cardona because he could see the writing on the wall that Zack Ryder, why brand myself as Zack Ryder? So I can't, and the Sashas, the Naomis, even Jordan Grace of Impact uses her real name on. Who am I to hate on that? Because they are looking at making themselves an entity and not tying themselves to a company and opening them up, and people feel like they know the real them. So maybe they'll get more followers, and it's all about making money at the end of the day. I get that. But as a fan, I fucking hate that stuff. I hate it. I think people like MJF, people like Darby, there is a lot of people, even Ronda Rousey kind of goes back and forth playing kayfabe.
Yeah, that's true.
Sam Roberts has talked about this. I think the utilization, especially, I'm not talking about companies and ring companies and all these people. I think little companies like that, of course, social media, put yourself out there, make your money, make your connections, network. But as far as just the wrestlers themselves, there's a lot of money being left on the table by them by using social media to really create this new era of kayfabe. That's how you're going to work fans, because there's so many fans casual fans especially, that they see things happening and they they're gonna say something. Well, he said on an interview he didn't say that, so that's not really the case. They treat it like it was said in an interview, it was said on social media, so that's the reality of the situation. But there's people like MJF that take that and they're using social media to spread the lie, to keep us biting on the story. And it's as simple as, AEW unfollowing MJF. Now we know that's all bullshit, but fans see it. Oh, he followed him or he unfollowed him. Something's happening. But so I feel like this new era of kayfabe could be attached to social media, and it could be this really fun new world to live in as a fan. But social media does kind of like ruin old school kayfabe, and I hate that.
And that's the thing. So like if you're on social media, if you have a Twitter, if you have a Facebook account, it'd be one thing if they were doing this in front of, in my opinion, people who still believe, who 100% believe, and the kids, right? I'm just thinking about kids. Kids are 100% invested in wrestling for the most part. They've, my opinion of what most kids view wrestling as is it's a real televised fight. It's a real fight that they're going to see, whatever it is. They don't know the behind the scenes stuff. Kids don't have Twitter and Facebook. The kids who are still believing. So I guess my devil's advocate opinion is, if you're already on the internet, you probably already know the real story of wrestling. You know that it's a show, right? So does it really matter if the performers are breaking kayfabe and they are showing their true skin? They are showing who they really are on social media, because we all know it's a show anyways. Can we get over that? Can we? Is it just the child in us that needs them to keep the facade on social media?
I don't want to know how the sausage is made, Mark. I want to know how the sausage is made.
That's the thing. Like, I want to suspend my disbelief. I want to be able to fully suspend and immerse myself into the story. And I think that's where, if I'm going to follow your social media, I don't want to see that. I'm not your friend. Like, I'm not at that point. Like, I'm not your friend. Like, I'm following you because of what you do in the professional wrestling world. I think, and I just don't want to see. I don't want to see what you're doing at a wedding. I don't want to see who you're out to eat dinner with.
Well, maybe they should have a separate account. So maybe a separate account, like a private account for personal stuff, is the best way to go.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to. You need to have two separate accounts. If you're going to have a public account, then that needs to be an account that keeps kayfabe alive.
And honestly, why are you letting in millions of fans into your personal life? That's kind of weird to me. It's like actors. I mean, I guess you see like the tabloids, but you don't see a lot of like actors doing their day-to-day stuff out there. Like, yeah, we know they're playing roles, but they're not putting everything out. Some are, I mean, obviously, but there are those people out there that try to keep their personal lives.
Like, I'm following you. I'm following you to see what your reaction is to what happened on Dynamite last week.
Right.
Somebody comes out and whoops your ass. I want to hear what you say about it on social media. I don't want to see like you get your ass whooped on Dynamite and then it's like, well, we're having a cigar.
Right.
Yeah.
And there are certain people who do have two accounts. Like, I know Renee Young Paquette, whatever you want to call her, she has a personal account and then one. Good. And I know there's other wrestlers who do too. And honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing more of that, just to help keep things a little separated. But again, if it's somebody that I feel's sharing too much and stuff I don't want to see, all I have to do is unfollow them.
And wrestling's a weird genre, man. It's not sports, but it's not film and TV. And we all know the score. We all know it's predetermined, but like Sneed said, I want to be able to suspend my disbelief and buy in a little easier, because at the end of the day, you watch a match, somebody gets slingshotted into the ropes and they run back into a clothesline. Like, kayfabe's dead right there. That guy didn't have to run back. So like, but still, when you're feuding with someone and that person, slams your arm in a car door, and then right after Dynamite, your arm's fine. You're having drinks with the person who just broke your arm on TV. It does kind of like take me out of it a little.
Okay, so just think about this for a second. consider this for a moment. I guess it matters where the money's coming from, right? Like, what is the age group, the age bracket that you're making the most money off of? If it's, who do you need to appease to? Do you need to appease to kids? Do you need to appease to adults? Do you need to appease to, the teenagers? Wherever the money is coming from the most, in my opinion, if you're going to run this like a business, that's where you need to focus everything. Every choice should be made based on that. So if the money is coming from the kids don't have a ton of social media, so do whatever on social media, because most of your money is going to be coming from the smaller kids. If the money's coming from the older kids or from the 40-year-old adults like us, then cater to them. But whatever they need, if they need you to live the gimmick on Twitter, if they need you to not break kayfabe, whatever you're doing, then that's where you need to go. It is interesting to think about, like, the storylines that stick out to me the most in like the last 20 years aren't the kayfabe storylines. Like Shawn versus Hogan sticks out to me because I know the backstage stuff, right? The Matt Hardy versus Edge means a lot to me and stuck out a lot to me. It meant a lot to me at the time because I think I'm smart, but at the same time, I think the storyline is going above smart. You know what I mean? They're really intertwining real life and TV stuff. I think Cardona does a lot of this stuff. And I think those types of stories for the smart fans are what ties that kind of stuff together. And there is where social media is very important. The moment that you give me a story that I'm biting into because I like because I'm smartened up, right? And even if because I'm smartened up, you're still getting this story past me. Like the Hardys debuting at WrestleMania, right? After the night before they were at Ring of Honor. The kid doesn't get that pop, right? A kid doesn't understand the importance of them showing up the day after they were in Ring of Honor.
You're just happy they're back.
Right, exactly. So stuff like that, if you want that type of audience, then I think you do need to live up to and keep the facade of the story going on social media. And I think when they don't, to answer the question, I do think it is non-beneficial to wrestling when people are breaking kayfabe on Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah, and your example of Cardona doing that stuff, he's a perfect example of someone who uses social media in the perfect way, because not only is he showing us a side of him, if you listen to his podcast and follow him, you're the real Matt, at least a little bit, you're seeing the real Matt, but he also threads in, look at all the tweets he makes where he's calling out Brett Lauderdale at GCW for not paying him. All of his feuds start by shit talking on Twitter. Like, he's still putting that villainous character threaded in where he's blurring the lines of who he is from his character to his
Not a lot of guys are doing that right now.
No.
I mean, a lot of guys are just, and that, to their credit, a lot of their posts are their Twitter and Instagram is 100% wrestling based. They're not posting pictures of their family at the barbecue.
Right.
But half their posts are, hey, check me out this weekend at this show. Hey, check me, I've got this show coming up next month. Feel free to check it out. Cardona and guys like him are able to not only get themselves over as the babyface or heel that they're trying to portray, they also get their product over. They get the shows that they're doing over. They do it very smartly. I think social media is absolutely beneficial, but it needs to be done in not a specific way. There's a million different ways to do it, but there's also more than a handful of ways not to do it.
Yeah, I think what you originally said, pros and cons, I think is so key, because we're sitting here talking about it from a business side. One of the big negative sides about social media in anything, and especially wrestling, is just volatile fans.
Yeah.
I don't know how they deal with it. I don't understand.
That's something I don't even want to
superpower.
Yeah, it's that the cesspool that can be the internet wrestling community on Twitter, having to deal with that. That's a whole other element of, like, why would you even want to be on social media if you had to deal with that?
I wouldn't.
Yeah,
I would.
All
right.
right. Jericho does his social media perfect, because after a match, he'll show the picture of his cut. He'll show his busted nose.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I want to see on my wrestlers that I follow.
He plays in, and he's another guy like Cardona. He does a great job of playing into his character, while also you get to kind of peek into his real life.
All right. Does anybody have anything final to say on this before we move on?
Follow me on Twitter, Ref Mark Bitters.
Tom, do you have anything?
Nope.
I can mute him now.
Oh, great.
Being in the studio
Yeah,
now,
you've got the mute button.
Oh.
I love it. All right, our third topic of the evening is Triple H relying on NXT Black and Gold talent good or bad for main roster WWE?
Both. Again, it's an answer that could be both. If the guys are going to be good, I mean, it's certainly helping the roster. We're getting some new names finally on Raw and SmackDown. We're seeing some different matches because of this. Ciampa's getting a shot finally, which is well deserved. He's had some great matches. We saw the whole Dexter Lumis story coming to Raw, and that's interesting to watch to see where that's going. But I mean, it depends to see if all these guys, some are going to sink and some are going to swim. So, I mean, I guess if he keeps loading it with Black and Gold guys,
I just don't know. How could it be bad though?
Yeah, I guess it can't be bad. If they're bad, then they'll just disappear and fade into nothing, right?
Here's my question. When you guys sent me this, I had immediate questions on just the content of the question itself.
Okay.
Triple H relying on NXT talent. Is he doing that right now? I understand he's bringing a couple guys back that he didn't. My opinion is that he didn't like that they got released in the first place, and he's like, no, those are good talents. We could use them here. Let's make sure we grab them up before somebody else does. I don't think that's him relying on that. Look at Raw last night. The Raw last night had Alexa, you had The Miz, you had Ziggler was in the main event. These are not NXT guys. Like, I don't think he's relying on NXT to brand his new version of what WWE is. He's definitely utilizing it, but I don't think he's leaning on it. You know what I mean?
I don't either. I do think that rely is a bad word because he's bringing back guys that he built. He's relying on guys that he knows what they have. When he was running NXT 1.0, Black and Gold, whatever you want to call it, he knows these guys. Even the Kevin Owens, the Drew McIntyres, the Nakamura's, the Finn Balor's, all of those guys who got their start in NXT and then jumped to the main roster. Like, I think he knows those guys. So why not bring them back? I love the fact that as soon as he gets in charge, these people that Vince fired, that Triple H is like, no, you didn't see what I saw in them. I'm bringing them right back.
I agree.
I love that he did that because that's correcting big mistakes to me.
Especially Karrion Kross. When he came up from what he was in NXT versus coming up to the main roster when Vince put him in the helmet and then
Unbelievable.
And now he's back. It's like Triple H was like, all right, that was stupid as shit. Like, now let's bring him back for real.
What's the first thing we see? The first thing that all the fans wanted to see was that epic fucking entrance. And the first thing we see when Triple H brings him back is that Videotron and you're like, oh God, Karrion. And then he attacks Drew. Like, I love that he's doing this now. Bring them all in, man. You know what you got. Triple H did a great job in NXT. I would say, 2016, 2017 NXT, not a lot better. They were doing a lot of great things there. And now he has the entire roster to play with, not just the NXT people. Like you said, Mark, the Dolph Zigglers, those guys that maybe we thought Vince was holding back. Maybe Triple H sees something and gives Ziggler a bit of a push, if you will.
Sure. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's not so much him relying on NXT, but now he can rely on guys that he knows he can rely on. And you're right. He was involved so heavily in NXT 1.0 or the original version of it that he knows those guys the most. So it makes sense that he's going to bring back guys that he knows he can count on. I think it also is something to say that Bobby Lashley is heavily featured on Raw, and he is an old school guy. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like he was immediately taken off of TV. They're still heavily featuring and heavily spotlighting Bobby Lashley, and I think that's fantastic. I think the mix that they have of NXT original guys, a handful of new NXT guys, along with guys from like the Dolph Ziggler age and the Miz, all the way back to the Bobby Lashleys. I think the smorgasbord of WWE content that they're packing into Raw right now is fantastic. And I have not said that about Raw in the past year.
Yeah. We haven't said that in a long time.
No.
Right.
And he
fresh.
proved that. He proved that in NXT, as far as like you're talking about the juggling act he's doing with fresh NXT, old school Bobby Lashley era, Ziggler era, WWE guys, the way he's handling all that. He proved that in NXT to a point because he had the guys, the independent big guys that he brought in that were big on the indies. Then he had the homegrown guys that he would throw and mix in. So he knows how to kind of juggle a variety of stars in different ways. And to have the might of the main roster, the machine of the main roster behind his creative vision is an exciting thing for fans, I think.
Let's also point out a lot of the stars he made in NXT that didn't get promoted or got released. Those are the guys Tony Khan targeted to bring to AEW.
Yep.
You know, majority of the WWE guys were former NXT guys: Malachi Black, Swerve, Keith Lee, Adam Cole, the Elite, the Undisputed Era. So there's so many that, you know, they might have been brought back if they weren't signed to AEW. So
it's fresh, man. It's fresh. It's good. We're getting matchups. Like, this is the first time in a long time that I've actually tuned into Raw. I mean, I've actually been sitting there and tuned into a live Monday Night Raw, and that's been years since I've done that.
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons that we canceled the Bitter Marks podcast, because none of us, all three of us, were not watching current product. We had nothing to talk about wrestling wise because we weren't interested in what the product was. Now, I mean, cut to where we're at now, and I think it's night and day from where we were 6 months ago. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of interesting things he's doing with like the way he's threading story now. It's not just bringing back guys. That's why he's not relying. It's not like, you know, when Tony was just signing guys and then they would come in and make a pop and then they'd kind of fade away. We haven't seen long-term how this is going to play out, but Triple H again has shown that he's good at booking long-term stories. And I think it's exciting to see him threading these stories, because this new era isn't just about, oh, Karrion debuted, oh, Dexter's back. It was the way he did Dexter. It's the backstage stuff with I think this week there was a trash can being put out that was on fire. And,
I didn't see
and the week before there was a car crash in the backstage area. And there's all these little things, if you watch, like he's piecing a bigger story together. And that's what gets me excited about pro wrestling is these detailed stories.
Is there any concern? I feel like a lot of the talent, both right now in WWE and AEW, were created for the most part. I mean, I know they were done on the indie scene. They at least got their start in the indie scene, but a lot of them finely tuned their craft in Triple H's NXT. Triple H's NXT does not exist anymore, right? NXT, now I haven't watched, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but NXT is a lot more like WWE 6 months ago compared to Raw 6 months ago, or compared to Raw last night. You know what I mean? I would much rather watch Raw this week compared to NXT this week. Do you guys feel the same way?
Yes.
Yeah.
My question is, going forward, if NXT is supposed to be this breeding ground of talent, and Triple H is not running NXT, I have no idea who's in charge of NXT right now. But if it's not Triple H and we don't have his style that we originally had in the original version of NXT, what does the future of wrestling look like?
I think we're going to see it mix back to the way, kind of a mix between what it is now and what it was, because it'll make the transition from when they go to NXT to the main roster a little smoother. I think it's just him ironing it out over time. I think Shawn Michaels is the one down there running it right now, doing everything. So you know Triple H is going to be in his ear, and I'm sure we're going to see a little less gimmicky stuff, a little more of the hard working. Like the NXT guys now are the cookie cutters wrestlers that Vince wanted. Very clean, very safe.
I feel like we're back to like 2002 when everybody was just a football, signee who was just learning how to be a pro wrestler.
Yeah. I don't disagree.
I think it's it's definitely developmental. I don't think there's any illusion of making it a true third brand. I think they're using it that way. I think the future's bright now because with Triple H kind of overseeing the whole deal, Now it's going to be a much more fluid transition where before, Triple H builds these guys up like a Karrion Kross, and then he comes to the main roster and he's wearing fucking S&M gear, so he would just throw away what we as fans came to love, where I think if Triple H sees a guy getting over and becoming just awesome down in NXT, and he knows that's working, when they come to the main roster, I feel like that's what's going to come to the main roster. He's not going to change it overnight.
Yeah. I will say something I haven't said in probably the last 2, 3, 4 years is that is true currently. I am very much looking forward to watching WWE over the next 6 months, year, just going forward. I'm very much looking forward to the future of the WWE. And that is not something that was even a morsel of a thought that was in my brain the past 4 years.
I don't even know who these two guys are anymore.
I'm hopeful. I mean, for the first, like me and Sneed said, for probably the last 5 years at least, this company won't be interesting until Vince leaves. Like it just, there is no way until I thought he was going to die in the chair. I think we all did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the fact that, I'm 38 years old, my entire life was Vince McMahon's reign. My entire life, he was in charge. So the fact that there's a new guy, the first time ever running the show, calling the shots, that in and of itself is exciting. It could have been anybody, not even Triple H. It could have been anybody. And I would have been intrigued of like, what's this new era of WWE minus Vince McMahon going to look like, just out of morbid curiosity. Even if it was Bruce Pritchard running the show, I'd have been like, what's this going to be like? But the fact that it's Triple H and he kind of has that track record with NXT Black and Gold, it does make it exciting for me again.
Absolutely.
I want to watch WWE.
Yeah, I want to watch it.
I think we all do. I think wrestling fans, we just want, especially 40-year-olds, we want, not only do we want to watch WWE, we want that competition that we had in 1998.
Yes.
We want the competing, we want the cutthroat war that we had previously, because the war makes both companies rise up and be better. If we can get that, then everybody's going to win. The companies win, they make money, and the fans get the content we've been looking for the past 5 years.
I'm all about that.
And they have a huge fan base. A lot of these people that were diehard AEW from the jump, myself included, that kind of stemmed out of feeling like what we wanted wasn't being given to us. And now we grew up on WWE. It's not like people turned their backs because, oh, fuck, we weren't happy with it. It's not that we kind of made the vocal decision to hate the product. We wanted to like it. It just wasn't giving us what we wanted. And now the fact that there's this kind of just wide open door where anything could happen.
Yeah.
That's super exciting.
I saw this question on Twitter yesterday. I'm going to ask it here.
Okay.
Really quickly. If Triple H had taken over WWE 5 years ago, would we have an AEW today?
Yes.
I don't think there's any way to answer that.
I still think,
do you think no, Tom?
I know. I would hope so, because competition is good for everything.
Sure.
I mean, if Cody was happy and was in WWE and all these guys,
I think Tony Khan was going to get into wrestling regardless of.
I think that was a plan of his. I definitely do. But it was just an interesting question when you think about it. If you don't have wrestlers who are unhappy, and don't want to go there, maybe you don't. You never know. But it might have started off on a smaller scale, because he might have not had Jericho. He might have not had Cody. He might have not had the Bucks. There's, like you said, there's no way to really answer it, but it's another one of those fun questions.
Yeah, it's the
debate.
butterfly effect. What would have that affected?
Here's another question. I don't want to spend too much time on this because I know we're already going long, but think about this. When we're talking about the competition and the war that we wish that they would create, would companies, AEW, WWE, whoever it is, Impact, would they benefit by offering shorter contracts just across the board, meaning that more guys are available at any time?
That would make it more interesting.
Meaning that anything can happen. Now, as a company, you don't want shorter contracts. You want to lock these guys up for the Bret Hart 20-year contract.
Yeah.
But the shorter contracts, at least in the short term, I think get you more views, right?
Yeah, and it would make the fan base would be more rabid.
It really would.
Could you imagine every 2 years, every big person was playing free agency?
Right.
Because that's when shit gets exciting. Like right now, MJF's contract isn't ending until 2024.
Right.
And we're talking about the lead up to that. Are they going to sign him? Are they going to do? Could you imagine if every 2 years
it'd be chaos, right? We would love it.
Constant bidding wars between the two companies. It would be super exciting.
I'd feel bad for the guys who are in charge of like making contracts and like working out the money, but as fans, it'd be great.
It'd be great.
I think Sam Roberts had said on his podcast he wished the maximum contract length for a wrestler would be 6 months.
Yeah, that'd be great. I would love that. Absolutely.
That would be nuts.
That'd be insane.
Well, I mean, on a performer aspect, I guess it doesn't give you the stability for your family and whatever, and you risk just being like a 6-month signee and then out of there. But at the same time, if you create yourself and make yourself valuable enough, you wouldn't have to worry about that.
Just think you can make more money if you have a great 6 months.
Right. Yeah. The motivation, right?
Yeah.
All right. Did anybody have anything final to say before we move? Do you have a round robin?
Yeah, I have a round robin.
Okay.
Quick round robin. This is just a clean answer. Do you think Johnny Gargano will play the independent scene for a short to an extended period of time, or do you think he's immediately going back to WWE and Triple H?
I think he's immediately going back to WWE and Triple H.
I do too.
Back to WWE.
Yeah, it's unanimous. I bought his Major Pod Bendy last week because I thought he was going to show up on Raw, and I feared they were going to sell out.
I think Triple H is going to make him, a big deal on the main roster.
All right. Well, Mark, tell everybody where they can find you before we let you go.
Yeah, if I haven't mentioned already, I'm all over Twitter, Ref Mark Bitters. You can find me there. I'm posting about now I'm a referee. I don't need to keep up a heel face persona. I do just post about the shows I'm doing. I post some cool shots of me in the ring. And then I also post about my wife, my lovely, lovely wife, who is heavily involved in DDPY.
Yep.
If you're looking to get involved in a weight loss journey, or just looking for some good, motivational, family, wholesome content that includes nutrition and working out, follow her on Twitter and Instagram at Next Level Grit. She would kill me if I didn't promote her, but you can. But give me a follow on Twitter at Ref Mark Bitters.
Awesome, man. Well, it's been good having you back. We hope to have you back on.
Not as long. I want to have you on sooner than
I would love that, guys. Anytime you want me on, you let me know, and I will not freak out about coming up with a question, and I'll bring it. I'll come right back.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right, guys, that's going to wrap us up for this edition of the Turnbuckle Debate. Make sure you guys are following us at theturnbuckletavern.com for all of your tavern needs. Tom, in-house, get your shit in. I want to see you do it. Go.
The OG Fig Kid on Twitter and Instagram. Fig Night every Tuesday at 7 and Turnbuckle Sessions on Friday with Mike Belcaster.
There he is. All right. Court is dismissed.